Now, I know this may sound controversial,
Did you know that psychologically,
but I'm just going to say it.
people love to say no?
No conversation about authenticity
There is this great power.
is complete without a little bit.
It is really common for us to talk about
Boundaries are a key ingredient.
the power of yes.
This idea of cultivating authenticity.
Hey there, I'm Reverend Dan. We are Soul Evolution Collaborative, a nonprofit based in universal spiritual principles, offering possibilities for navigating the evolution of life in an authentic and intentional way. And this is Truth Be Told 2.0, a weekly series that is changing the norms, bringing you inspiring and uplifting messages to look at life a little differently. We are right in the middle of our series on cultivating authenticity. And this week, we're talking about boundaries, which seems to be a pretty hot topic right now. If we desire to express ourselves authentically, then it is up to us to become familiar with and clarify our boundaries. Boundaries are the container in which our authentic self resides. And having clear boundaries empowers us to know what is ours to be and to do in the world. But until we communicate our boundaries and hold others accountable to them, we cannot expect others to honor our boundaries. We may not feel comfortable sharing them at times because of our beliefs. Maybe it feels selfish or that we are being difficult or even unspiritual. Yet it is our responsibility to clarify and share our boundaries. So here's the good news. Boundaries build bridges. If we want healthy relationships, then boundaries are the bridges that get us there. So let's check it out and go a little deeper into setting boundaries.
No conversation about authenticity is complete without a little bit about boundaries. Now, I know this may sound controversial, but I'm just going to say it because I think it's true. Boundaries are a key ingredient in this idea of cultivating authenticity. So where do we start? Where do we start when we're looking to be more authentic? We're looking to build, to create these boundaries that we know support authenticity. Where do we start? Well, first, I think it starts with self-discovery. We kind of have to figure out what our boundaries are. Be a little bit familiar with our limits. I call them my non-negotiables. And not have any judgment around these things. Like, well, I guess I should allow this, or I shouldn't allow this, or other folks allow this and other folks. No, these are about what are the non-negotiables in your life? What are the things that what are your yeses, what are your nos? And so it can be so challenging sometimes to communicate these. And I think, it's easy to kind of figure out our boundaries, but then when we have to begin to communicate them, that is the challenge. And it can be scary. It can be scary because often, I'm just going to say it, we don't like hearing what other people's boundaries are sometimes, because sometimes it means that we have to change kind of how we show up. And so it's really challenging to communicate those boundaries. But when we're really clear through self-discovery, through kind of looking at ourselves and what's in alignment with who and what we are, when we're really clear about them, then being able to communicate those clearly, allowing ourselves to set boundaries without those feelings of guilt or, it's not spiritual if I set boundaries, I'm supposed to love everyone in every way and all this sort of stuff. And we know that's not true. So when we understand that setting boundaries actually doesn't create less connection. Setting boundaries and saying, this is who I am, and this is how I'm showing up, and this is what I'm going to allow, and this is what I'm expecting you, and how you interact with me. Setting those boundaries actually allows us to connect with others in a real and authentic way. Now, just like we talked about last week, the masks sometimes impact how we deeply connect with one another. Not setting boundaries also impacts how we can deeply connect with one another. So when I can get really clear about who I am, when I can get really clear through self-discovery, self-reflection, through cultivating this authentic life, then I can begin to speak that clarity in every interaction, no matter if it's one-on-one or to a group or to the world, right? And so then I set clear boundaries of how I'm going to interact and how I'm going to receive interaction from you. And so boundaries then become like the ultimate act of self love. And really, it's the ultimate act of community love. And so when we look at boundaries this way, as not ways to disconnect, but ways that actually support our connection, our authentic connection with one another, then boundaries in all its many forms and fashion serve as a key ingredient. I mean, an imperative ingredient into cultivating authenticity.
While you're here, remember to hit like, subscribe, maybe even drop a comment. We would love to hear from you, and thanks for watching. Did you know that psychologically, people love to say no to things? In fact, hostage negotiators apparently use these no-oriented questions as a tactic to talking someone down. Give them things to say no to. There is this great power in being able to say no. And yet, it is really common, especially within New Thought teachings, for us to talk about the power of yes. Sometimes we even go so far as to say things like, you should always say yes, as if to say that if you say no to something that you're like missing out on something the universe is trying to give you. Well, here's the thing. If we always say yes to everything, what does that actually mean? What does it mean if we actually say yes to everything, everybody, every question, every opportunity? Actually, we are inadvertently saying no to a whole lot of stuff. We are watering down our yes by saying it all over the place. That our yes begins to mean much less than if we were to say yes very specifically to very specific things. And so having a strong no can be really important. A strong no can be equally as important as a very clear and definitive yes to the things that we are a yes about, because I guarantee you there are things that you have a no about, and for some of us we say yes anyway. No, I really don't want to go out and do that thing, but we feel compelled. We don't want to hurt people's feelings, we don't want to lose friends or whatever, and we say yes and we do the thing anyway. And now we're in a situation where we said yes, we meant no, but we did it anyway. And that definitely waters down our yes. So part of cultivating authenticity is knowing what we want to say yes to and what we, dare I say, should say no to. Saying no in times where there really is a no. What is that no based on? What is that yes based on? And it really comes down to values. What are our values? Authenticity is based in a lot in values, knowing what our values are. And so when we know what we value, then we know what is a yes and what is a no. If we value balance in our life and an opportunity comes up to go out and do some sort of social event, but it's a week where we're totally slammed with other stuff, totally depends on you and your values. But perhaps saying no to going out is actually saying yes to taking the time to take care of ourselves by relaxing. And so saying no is actually also a strong yes to something else. And vice versa. Having a really strong yes usually implies a strong no about something else. If I say yes to doing this project, then that means no to this project, at least for now. If I'm a full-on yes to doing this one thing really well, that means I'm also saying no to spending time doing the other things while I want to be, need to be doing this thing. And so our values inform our yes. Our values inform our no. They inform what we care about and how we then respond to it. Now, here I think is the catch, and maybe this is the catch for all of authenticity, but with our yes, with our no, with our boundaries, not everybody's going to love our boundaries. And I think we probably have all run into this at some point or another. We set a firm boundary and we get pushback to that boundary. It's easy not to be like, well, okay, you're right. Yeah, let me give. Unconsciously, we're like, yeah, all right, let me give on this boundary. I'll break this boundary this time for you this time, right? And really, what's happening is the people who tend to gain the most from our lack of boundaries are the ones who tend to dislike them the most. They get away with getting more. There's some sort of benefit to them for us not having boundaries. And I think that this is a thing that is experienced far and wide, that we tend to have an experience of bending ourselves for someone else. And that is, I think, the crux of this whole month is authenticity. Who are we really, so that we know our values well enough, we know our yes well enough, we know our no well enough, so that we no longer bend ourselves for the benefit or convenience of somebody else. Prentice Hemphill, writer, cartographer of emotions, as they call themselves, political organizer, and therapist, says, boundaries are the distance in which I can love me and you simultaneously. I absolutely love that. I think that's just a brilliant way of expressing boundaries. The boundaries are what allow me to love me and you at the same time. So knowing what is a yes and knowing what is a no for you is critical in setting boundaries, which create the space for our authentic expression and healthy relationships.